All right, so where am I right now? Well, let's see. We've got the beautiful Columbia River behind me. It's a little bit windy. Over here, we've got the Pendleton store just beyond Highway 14. Then you know we are right in Washougal, Washington, and that's what I'm going to talk about all through this video. All right, are you ready to take a walk with me through Washougal as we learn all about it so you can make the decision if you want to move here? Well, get ready, because here we go. Hey everybody, it's your host here once again, Dave Baker with the Living in Washington team. Now, if you are ready to learn everything about what it's like to live here in Washougal, Washington, then you know what you've got to do. After you click that little subscribe button and you tap that little bell, all you have to do is send me a text message, you can send me an email, you can give me a call on the phone, or if you're ready to go and you want to get on the calendar, just click the link in the description and schedule a call below. And we will help you get started, get the ball rolling, learn more about the place, and find the place that's really right for you. Because there are a lot of options out there, and when you're looking for a place to live, well, you've got to have a team that works for you. All right, let's start talking about what it is like and what I like and things you should know about living here in Washougal, Washington. You can see it's a little windy, so I'm going to take you off the river and we're going to go through the city. But first, let me give you a quick image and so you can see how beautiful the Columbia River is. So here in Washougal, once again, like in other parts of Southwest Washington, you have another place where you can go for a walk along the Columbia River. And I love it. I love having this outdoor opportunity. I love having this developed space where you can take advantage of these things. Now, because of the wind, being in the gorge, of course, there's going to be some wind. I'm going to take you through more of the city area, but we're going to talk a lot about what goes on over here. So the first thing we have to talk about is what I just mentioned, okay? Here in Washougal, it is a great place to live if you enjoy the outdoors. So what gives you so much opportunity? Well, first of all, you've got the Columbia River, right? So you have the river. The river creates so much opportunity because it's right here for you to enjoy outdoor activities. Obviously, if you watch my videos, you know I love to go hiking. There's a lot of places to go hiking out here on both the Washington side and the Oregon side of the river. So that's just one thing you can do. But because you have the river, you can enjoy a lot of water-based activities, right? You saw the docks out there, I imagine, when we were standing on the river. Those are just small docks, but there are numerous marinas. So if you are into boating, that's available. You have a place to keep your boat, assuming you don't get a place with a big enough garage, by the way, because you might be able to get that too. But you have places to keep your boat, launch your boat, and go out and enjoy the river. You have other motorsports, right? You have water skiing, or you have jet skiing, or personal watercraft riding, if you'd like to call it that. You've got a lot of things you can do in the water area. One of my favorite things to do is also to have lunch on the water, or have dinner on the water. Sure, it's not as physically active, but wow, it's scenic and nice. So having the Columbia River here is great. In fact, did you know that Washougal is often referred to as the gateway to the gorge? Because the Columbia River Gorge, which is what you see when you continue driving past Washougal, or if you're on the Oregon side of the river and you're on Highway 84, it's beautiful. Seriously, it's so nice and it's so scenic. The natural environment is amazing. If you're coming from the desert, like let's say you're thinking of moving from Nevada to Washington, you're thinking of moving from Central California, then you know that you're not used to seeing a lot of trees. For me, it was a big deal. When I came up here the first time, I mean, it's been many years now, but I remember noticing the trees, right? And I didn't really appreciate them when I first came up to Washington on vacation. So what happened? I started noticing when I left just how beautiful it was because I missed it. So originally, back in the day, I'm from California, and like so many people, right? And it's so interesting because you don't know what it's like until you see this many beautiful trees. There are some areas I feel like I'm in a rainforest. It's incredible what you see. The number of evergreen trees in the evergreen state, right? It's just spectacular. So that's the first thing that I love about Washougal's area here. Washougal, Camas, Vancouver, this whole Southwest Washington area is great. You've got that access to the river, and around there you also have waterfalls to visit. Of course, you've got Multnomah Falls, one of the most famous waterfalls, but you also have La Tourelle Falls. You've got the Bridal Veil area. You've got so many areas if you enjoy outdoor activity like hiking, biking, camping, fishing. You know, there are just so many cool spots for it. And if you're into the outdoors, this is a place to be. You know what else is interesting is that you see, I feel like I've seen more people here spend time outdoors than anywhere I've ever been. And I spend a lot of time up here. I'm not far from here. So in the whole Northwest, the Pacific Northwest, the number of people I see partake in outdoors activities is shocking. And when I first came up to the Northwest, I told people, oh, I want to go to Portland because I want to be in a city. And do you know that nobody understood what I was saying? They said, oh, are you coming up to the Northwest? You can get outdoors and go hiking and stuff and, buy warm clothes. I mean, heck, we just passed the Pendleton store, right? Pendleton, famous for their wool. You've got those warm, nice clothes. And I said, what are you talking about? What about the city? I'm telling you, nobody knew what I was talking about. Everyone thought I came up here and like, you want to live here because you love the outdoors, right? Well, you know what happens? You start to love the outdoors. I used to love to be indoors. Now I really enjoy the time I spend outdoors. It's pretty spectacular. So that's the first thing I really wanted to talk about. That's why I wanted to start on the Columbia River. I wanted you to see just how beautiful it was. Let's go this way. So that's number one on the list. Now, the next thing we have to talk about if you're thinking about moving here is number two, jobs, right? Employment, jobs, things like that. So who are some of the biggest employers in this area? Obviously, Washougal is a smaller town, right? You've got a population under 15,000, might be around 12,000. There are different census numbers and different estimates, but we'll say it's between 10 and 14,000. So you're not going to have a ton of huge companies here. But just in this area, between Camas and Vancouver, you're going to have Georgia Pacific, the paper company, of course, which is famous because it has that location in Camas, Washington. Of course, you're going to have some local jobs. I mean, here's the post office, right? So you'll have some local opportunities as well if that's what you're looking for. But in terms of big companies, you've got Georgia Pacific, you've got Hewlett-Packard. Now, I think that a lot of the jobs, once you leave Vancouver, which is going to be the biggest city because this is kind of a suburb of Vancouver, are going to be on the Portland side. So here's the deal. Portland has a ton of companies, right? And I don't just mean Portland. You've got Portland, Beaverton, Hillsboro. Well, you've got some pretty famous companies over there, right? You've got Nike. Of course, Nike, one of the biggest companies in the world. That's going to be out, in the Beaverton, Hillsboro area. You've got Intel, number two. Huge company. One of the most famous companies in the world. You might be using one of their devices right now. Who knows? And you have a ton of apparel companies, okay? So you've got Columbia Sportswear, hence the Columbia River, right? Columbia Sportswear is over there. Portland has tech companies. You have all these different types of bigger companies that are down there on the Portland side. You have two freeways you can take to get to Portland if you have to, which is going to be 205 and, of course, Highway 5. The 5 is, of course, one of the longest freeways in the country, right? It goes all the way from like San Diego, California, up to Canada. But here's the deal. You do have to be aware of the location if you're looking at getting a job at one of those companies. And what am I saying by that? I mean that you have to be aware how long it's going to take you to get to Portland. So let's talk about item number 3 you should be aware of. That wasn't a great 3. Item number 3 you should be aware of. Okay, and that's going to be traffic and weather. I feel like a newscaster. So if you're driving to Portland, you're going to be 20 miles away, right? So if you're 20 miles outside of Portland, the reality is you're going to have bridge traffic. That's the traffic when you drive over 205 or when you drive over Highway 5. So you are going to have some traffic if you are commuting. Now, if you were just commuting to Vancouver, I wouldn't stress over that. It's a sunny day and windy. Okay, I wouldn't stress if you have a commute to Vancouver. Sure, it's not exactly next door, it's not in walking distance, but it's convenient and there's not a lot of traffic if you're driving along Highway 14. The real issue comes up when you are driving to Portland, Oregon, because then you are going to have bridge traffic. And I'll tell you, in my own experience, if I want to go to dinner, for example, on a weekday, and I needed to commute from Portland back to Vancouver, and I want to meet with people just in downtown Vancouver, not accounting for the time it'll take you to drive out to Washougal, it's going to take me 40 minutes. And that 40 minutes is like 10 miles. So keep in mind, this is 20 miles away. Now, the last part of your trip might be less traffic because you're on 14. Maybe you could take some other kind of side streets, but be aware of that. If you are working in Portland and living in Camas or Washougal, then you're going to have to factor that into your day. I wanted to do a quick stop and just take you by this little museum in Washougal. Take a quick image of it for you. I just want to show you some of the, I guess we could call them tourist activities, but heritage sites and things that are all about the, the discovery of this city. It's all part of the, the Lewis and Clark Trail. You see some tributes to Lewis and Clark here, or reminders or monuments, right? You see the Newfoundland, the Newfie, the dog that traveled with them. There's a statue for that Newfie. Super cute. And you do see historical markers all through the Northwest on both the Washington and Oregon side of the river. I think that's pretty cool. Okay. So we talked about the traffic. It's not bad in the city at all. It's not bad in Camas, Washougal. It's just bad if you have to commute during rush hour, okay? So if you can work on your own schedule, that's different as well. But let's talk about the other item I mentioned, the weather. Some people think that the weather is going to be exactly the same as Portland. They think, oh, it's the Pacific Northwest. So they assume that the weather is identical, but it's not. The weather is different. It is. And here's the reason. You're more directly on the Columbia River Gorge. So if you live in Portland, you're not on the gorge. You are, in the vicinity of the gorge. But when you live here in Washougal, you are going to have windier weather, which you can probably see as I'm walking right now. You see it on the trees. And then you're also going to have a cooler feeling because, again, you're really right on the water. And if you're wondering, there are homes on the water. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But I just want to make sure you know it's not exactly the same weather. You will also have the gray in the winter. Yes, the sky is gray. Not every day, but there is a lot of gray in the winter. Some people care about that and some people don't. I find it really interesting because it's not a concern for everybody. The big question I like to ask myself whenever I'm talking about weather in wherever I am is, can you handle, here's the question, are you ready? Can you handle 3 months of weather you don't like to have either an amazing summer or summer and spring or 9 months of good weather? This is not just something you think about when you're living in the Pacific Northwest. So when you're talking about the weather, think about this from other parts of the country as well. Let's say, for example, you're living in Las Vegas, Nevada, and you're thinking about moving here to Washington. Well, you already know what you're dealing with. You're dealing with 3 months of tough summer weather, right? Really hot weather, which some people love. Some people don't. So in Vegas, you ask yourself, well, can I deal with 3 months of hot weather to have 9 months of good weather, the rest of the year? That's the question. As you know, you don't even need to watch my videos for this. It rains in the Pacific Northwest, but that's why we have so many beautiful trees here. So there is a plus that comes out of it. Right in the heart of downtown right now. This is really the heart of the downtown area, or the center, if you will. It's right where you have this monument on the corner of Main Street and Pendleton. This is where they have some events. In fact, there was recently a town event. I wish I could have taken you to it. So in case you're wondering, what is the monument we just passed? It is a monument from the town pump that was first here in the 1800s. And you know, that's when this area was really starting to be developed. Speaking of development, let's talk about number 4 on the list of things that I think are particularly interesting if you're thinking about living here. It's that there is development. Okay, look behind me, for example. That's not a building from the 1800s. Okay, you've got some development here. These are newer buildings. But don't worry, you still have some of the historical American stuff, like that Newfie, or the Newfoundland dog I was talking about from the Lewis and Clark Trail. Here's the statue. So there is development going on, and I mentioned that in another video. It's something that it concerns me wherever I live. I want to see that the city is blossoming. I want to see that it's not dying, right? So if you've watched some of my other videos about this area, you know I've talked about the waterfront development in Vancouver, which is beautiful, by the way. That credit to them, that place is spectacular. But there is a waterfront development coming here in Washougal. Camas and Washougal, they're the last 2 cities, okay, on the way through the Columbia Gorge. So let's say you're heading east. No, I mean really east, right? Like you're heading to Boise, Idaho. You're talking about, you know, additional 5-hour drive, right? This is it. This is the last city. Washougal is the last place on the way where you're really going to stop. I'm not going to say that there are no other people or no other cities. We'll give a shout out. Let's give a shout out to everyone in Stevenson, Washington on the Washington side. And if you're going on to 84, shout out to Cascade Locks on the Oregon side. Both 2 cute little places I like. And if you're thinking of moving to one of those places, by the way, I don't want you to think that we're limited here. So if you want to move to Stevenson, Washington, you need a team to help you. You can reach out to us. And something I really want to know, drop me a note in the comments. What do you think about living in a smaller place where it's kind of the last city on one side of where you're going? So this is like the last city towards the east. But let me just go back to that development, economics, and location factor. It's something I think is important. Washougal and Camas are both kind of, how should we say, suburbs of Vancouver, if you will. And Vancouver, it can be considered a suburb of Portland. But all those places have development going on. And that's why the population is growing. People are moving to Washington. Let's talk about some of those things right now, actually. So let's jump into the next item on the list. And that is going to be a quick reminder that in the state of Washington, there is still no income tax at this time. Why do I say at this time? Just because one day, who knows what will change in life. But right now, there's still no income tax in Washington. That's a huge deal for anyone thinking of moving from another state that has taxes. There are only something like 7 to 9 states in the United States that do not have income tax. So if you're coming here, if you're thinking of moving from California to Washington, that's a treat. In California, you could be paying 10%, 12%, 13, 14, something like 15%. I don't have the exact numbers handy, but you could be paying a lot of your income in income tax. If you come here, you're going to have a huge savings. Now, you do have sales tax here. So, in case you're wondering, yes, there is sales tax here. This is not Oregon, okay? People when they talk to me, they often kind of interchange those things. They say, oh, is Washington that state with no sales tax? No, that's Oregon, okay? So let's say you want to go shopping. If you do that in Oregon, you don't have sales tax. Do you have it here in Washington? Yes, you do. It's not super low either, especially if you head north. If you head up to the Seattle area, they have additional higher sales tax up there. But that's okay. In Southwest Washington, you're going to have sales tax but no income tax. That's a major plus. So that's kind of I wanted to make sure to touch on that, the economic side. Like, you've got no income tax, which is a huge gain for so many people, keeping more money in your pocket that you can spend on your home, your life, your future, whatever you're doing, your retirement, whatever you need. It's great. And then the other economic aspect we talked about, which is there's development going on. So there are a lot of places that are like really booming, especially on the West Coast. I mean, a lot of people are leaving California. So where are they going? Well, they're going to Las Vegas for sure. A lot of people go to Las Vegas. In fact, people sometimes refer to Las Vegas as California East. They're coming to Washington because in the north you have a lot of tech jobs, but you also have no income tax, and you have a lot of other beautiful things that people like about Washington. People are going to Portland, Oregon. They're still going to Portland. Yeah, they are. As of right now, houses are still flying off the shelf. And where else are people going? Boise, Idaho. Boise is also, it is getting quite the influx. Now, I'll tell you something different. When I'm here, whether I'm in Washougal or whether I'm up in Ridgefield or Battleground, Washington, or over in Camas, down on Main Street, you don't hear as many people talk about being from California, but there are some places where I basically feel like everyone's from California. So if that's something that, if you're a Californian and you're thinking of moving out here, it's not going to be like everyone is from California. When you go to Las Vegas, a lot of people are from California. You go to Idaho, Boise, Eagle, Meridian, oh, so many people are from California. But it is different here. So we've covered some of the key things, right? We have talked about outdoor activity, which is a ton of that. Employment opportunities. You've got big companies that are within 20 or 30 miles. I want to talk about one more item, since we have talked about traffic and weather as well, economic development. There's one thing I just want to touch on really quickly, which is public transportation. This does come up when people think of the Northwest. The best public transportation is in Portland, Oregon. And they have a lot of stuff down there. They have the MAX, they have the streetcar, they have the WES, they have their bus system. They have that down. It's been planned out pretty well. This is where I'm going to really give them credit in Portland. In Vancouver, Washington, you do have a bus system. You do not have a rail system, except unless you're taking an actual train. Like, meaning you're taking a train all the way from Washington to Oregon, or you're taking a train all the way to, California or something like that. But you don't have a light rail system, you don't have a streetcar. But credit to Vancouver, they've really done up those bus stops. They have come up. I mean, they're significantly nicer than they were before. And I think they're really trying to integrate that in the city. You have buses that do come out to these locations, here, Washougal, Camas, etc., but it's not the same. So this is a car-dependent city. You will need a car if you live here. Something I do like, though, those leaves are coming at me. Something that I like is that you can live by the downtown. If you're interested in an older house, meaning, I don't mean it's from 1801, but if you're interested in an older house, you can live by the downtown area and you can walk to a lot of things like restaurants and cafes. So I love that, but you are going to have an older house. If you're looking for a more expensive or a brand new house or a new development, you are going to certainly pay more, and you're going to live a little bit further from the downtown, so you will need a car. There's no question of that. So when you're looking at this area, the last thing we're going to talk about is real quick is just the pricing. Right now, you are still seeing an average home price of over $500,000. I believe it's over $505,000 or $525,000 as of right now. Certainly, there are homes you can get in Washougal that are significantly more, especially if you're looking for a newer development. If you're looking for an older home that you could work on, you could call it a fixer or something like that, you're going to have more opportunity in a lower price range. But if you are looking for a newer home, and I know there's some of you who love to fix homes, and there's some of you who don't, the newer homes are going to be more expensive. The closer to Camas you go, when you get into Camas, up on the hill, you're definitely going to have more expensive homes. And the most expensive homes, for reference, are going to be on the Columbia River. If you want to live directly on the Columbia River, you want to have that view is possibly priceless, okay? If you want that view, you definitely pay for that. So I hope this has helped you to really understand a lot about the neighborhood, things that interest me, things that I think about when moving. And as we return back to the Columbia River on this walk, I just want to remind you, if you're thinking about moving out here, you've got to reach out to me, okay? Send me an email, send me a text message, give me a call on the phone, or schedule a call at a time that's convenient for you in the link below, and the team will help you. The coordinator, the whole team wants to help you with your move to Southwest Washington, or to Portland, Oregon, or anywhere in that region, because there is a sense of community between these two areas, although they are quite different in some respects, like politically, the way you have public transportation, things like that. So there are obviously some differences, but no matter where you choose to move, it's important that you find the place that's the perfect one for you. Lastly, of course, make sure to click that little subscribe button, tap that little bell for the notifications so that I can keep sharing everything that I love, that I know all about living here in Southwest Washington. All right, everyone, until the next video, take care.